again, like I think we look at these selections and we look at like free agency. Bielitsa a couple years ago. Was that Bob Myers or was that, hey, somebody in the front office, I really think Bielitsa would be a great fit. You know what? Let's take a look at that. And then we start going down the road and collectively we came to the decision. I just think it's hard for most of us that on the outside try to pinpoint who's doing what.
Let me make this example. Okay, so
is that unfair to Bob?
You look at this. Maybe.
I
don't
think
I'm
trying to give more credit to groupthink.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Clay, Steph, and Draymond, when they were in their prime. It was like, damn. Or better yet, let's go Emmitt Smith, Trey Aikman, Michael Irvin. One of those guys, you take away one of them, they were just not the same, right?
Yeah, when Emmitt Smith held out, they weren't the same team.
They struggled.
Well, I forget they missed.
But if Michael Irvin didn't play, they struggled. If Troy Aikman didn't play, they struggled.
Totally different team.
You get Clay, Dre, and Steph, and you see the data. When one of those guys are missing, it's a different team. You need all these pieces to fit into one puzzle.
Yeah.
And if you take away one piece, you can't complete that puzzle.
Yeah.
You can't come to an agreement. You can't put your best foot forward, right? Bob Myers is a big piece to the puzzle.
Of course.
Now, is he making all the final decisions? I think he's like, hey, Joe, I think we should really step back from this and prevent Joe from doing certain things. Now, sometimes ownership's going to come down your road. They're going to do what they want. Imagine working for a guy like George Steinbrenner, right? Like Brian Cashman. I applaud Brian Cashman because that's a difficult job to have to adhere to George Steinbrenner all those years, and now you got Hal Steinbrenner, where it's a little easy, but you're in New York. You got to make all these big decisions, trades, to pressure for the fan base or whatnot. So I think Bob Myers, is he the end-all, be-all? Can you replace a guy like him? It's going to be very tough. It's going to be very difficult.
I completely agree.
Like John Lynch, for example.
I think it's a big loss. I want to make sure.
Okay.
I want to make sure that's clear.
It's a huge loss.
I think this is a big loss.
Huge loss. And he's a big piece to the puzzle. That bridge to be, does Kirk Latham have their relationships with other NBA
I don't think Kirk Latham's going to be
or other franchises? I know. Yeah, I don't think so either. I never thought that.
Why would you put your son in a position to either have to step down, be fired, face scrutiny? If you're gonna own the team for, let's just say, 35 years, right? I think the average tenure of American franchise ownership is somewhere between 25 and 35 years. Let's say you're gonna own it.
Right.
Why would you set your son up to face all that scrutiny when he can have the same amount of influence and not have the title and never have to be fired?
However, you can make him the GM and just never fire him. Stevie Jones and Jerry Jones run the Dallas Cowboys.
True.
Nobody's firing them.
Yeah, but they get a lot of heat.
They get a lot of heat, but they don't care. They own the team.
I know,
and they're going to make all the decisions they make. And Joe Latham said, look, as long as I'm the owner, I want to win.
Yes.
We're going to win.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do everything I can to win. So maybe there is a power shift to the Lakers. They're saying, we're smart. We know how this runs. We know how to run a business. This is a different business, but we feel like we could be successful without whoever. Let's go, baby. And so who's to say that Kurt Latham is not the GM? I don't believe he's going to be that. I don't believe he's going to be that. But you see it in sports sometimes where the family says, you know what? We're making all the damn decisions.
Well, no, you don't have to see it in sports. Like I don't know if you listen to me and Spadoni, but my uncle runs a small family business. And I understand there are a lot of differences between a $6 billion team in the Golden State Warriors and the Mary Sales Company, which is what my uncle runs. Now, my grandfather was basically the head of the company years and years ago. My uncle started off in the warehouse. Bonta started off in the warehouse, and he worked his way in to certain positions. And in my grandfather's mind, he did his due diligence. He worked every single job that you could work inside that business before obviously taking over, and he had the education and all the different things that were required of him. And he made a lot of mistakes along the way, but it's still now a thriving business. And one day, his son is going to take over that business. And his son works in the summers and during the when he's not in school and whatnot, in the warehouse. And he's learning from his dad the right and wrong ways to do things, and he'll make mistakes. But that's the American business dream. That's what most people are doing.
Yeah, but if you make mistakes in this business, it sets your franchise back. It affects your season tickets.
Of course.
It affects your revenue.
Of course.
It affects everything. And it's on a bigger platform.
Bonta, no one's denying that. But the characteristics, as I think are similar in the sense that when you are the top dog and you run the business, you are going to put people that you like, people that you have connections to, in positions of power.
But you can't be reckless. This is sports. This is a little different than all those other businesses. I agree. The analogy works.
You could hire a guy from the outside who sucks.
The analogy works. But we got to remember, this is the NBA.
Bonta,
It's a little bit different than a warehouse business.
No one is
and
saying
it's a
this-
little bit different. No, I hear that. But you have to draft players. Hold on, let me finish, because I'm not disagreeing with you, Sasky.
Yeah.
But that analogy where your dad or uncle's running a
Well,
business,
any business.
great, that's fine. But when you're talking about the Golden State Warriors, you're talking about a major professional business, and you make player mistakes, and you make coaching mistakes.
Of course.
And you make executive mistakes, and you don't win games.
Well, of course.
That is a little different. And all of a sudden, people stop coming to your profit, and guess what? That really affects your bottom line. You got to hire the right people. And is Kurt Lacob the right person to be the GM? I don't even think he's going to be the GM. I never thought that whatsoever. I think he's going to be more of an ownership role. The guy to look at is Mike Dunleavy Jr., who Bob Myers spoke about and said, look, I believe Mike Dunleavy Jr. can do this. I believe he can. Now, think about Mike Dunleavy Jr., the brief time we mentioned him yesterday when the news dropped at 9:20. How many fans are already against Mike Dunleavy Jr.? They're already not feeling the move because of what he was as a player,
well, that's
which
not
is unfair.
fair.
It's not unfair, but this is a new guy who's doing a new job. However, as Joe Lacob said yesterday, I took a chance on Bob Myers. Bob Myers said it. Joe Lacob took a chance on me. I had no experience whatsoever, and it worked out well for everybody within the Golden State Warriors organization, including Bob Myers, who's going to walk away June 30th. So how important is Bob Myers? I think it's pretty damn important. Could it be the first domino to drop for this regime, for this dynasty? We'll see. We'll see. We got some big decisions to make here. That new GM or the Lacobs, whoever's going to have to figure out what to do with Draymond Green. They're going to figure out what to do with Jordan Poole. We'll see. We'll see. But I think Bob Myers, you could talk about his flaws, strengths. I'm here to talk about all that. How was he? How would you assess his role as GM here with the Golden State Warriors? It's fair. Everything's fair. Was he good? Was he overrated? Did he run things? Did he not run things?
How impactful is the GM? That's a question I keep coming back to. I think it's important, but I'm seeing a lot of people say it's not that it's irrelevant, because I don't think it's fair. No, I just think I've seen some people say, well, as long as they have Steph Curry, everything else settles itself. And I'm thinking, Steph Curry wanted Avery Bradley last year. I love Steph Curry. Steph Curry's amazing, right? He's one of the all-time greats. Steph Curry wanted Andre Iguodala this year. That didn't really work out too well. He wanted Avery Bradley last year. Thank God they hung on to GP2. That ended up being a great move for them. Yes, you want to listen to your players, and yes, great players, can really help a situation. There's no one's denying that. But you still need the proper infrastructure in place to create a great environment around Steph Curry. And sometimes you need someone who's not that individual to put the right pieces that maybe he wouldn't have normally considered alongside of him to just see what works.
Bob did that.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
But if you're wondering out loud how important the GM role is for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, for right now, if they roll it, I'm thinking okay, let's say Draymond opts in, right? And they want to keep it together, okay? How many moves can you really make right now?
You could make a few.
You think?
You could make a few. There's Jonathan Kuminga.
Okay.
There's Andrew Wiggins. There's Jordan Poole. If they do decide to go with the core three. Now, my gut today, if you ask me, hey, Bonta, is Draymond Green going to be back on the team? I do believe he's going to be back with the Golden State Warriors.
You think so?
I have a hard time seeing him opt out. That's just my gut. I could be wrong. My gut has been lying to me a long time. A long, long time. I think Draymond's coming back. So if Draymond's coming back, you obviously want to put veterans around Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. And will that new GM or whatever decision-maker you have, because Joe Lacob said it's a week thing. He said it yesterday.
Yeah.
When he walked in the studio a couple years ago when he talked to us, he said it was a we thing. When I talked to him before with Greg Papa, he said it was a we thing. It's a lot of group decisions. But who has the most impact in those decisions? I think Bob Myers had a lot of impact in those decisions. You can't dismiss that. Who will have that impact? Who will push back on Joe Lacob if Joe Lacob wants to go down the Kelly Oubre route again? A player like that where he's like, oh, boy, this is a big mistake. Somebody needs to talk to Joe Lacob, talk him off the ledge here. Who's going to be that guy? I think that's where you may miss Bob Myers most.
No doubt. But
I do believe.
I agree with that.
I do believe a GM role is important. You need to establish that. You need to establish your roles in this organization and infrastructure. It can't be loosey-goosey saying, hey, this guy's going to be part of our front office, but he doesn't have an official title. Well, how much power does he really have?
That's kind of where I'm going. And I keep coming back to who, right now, who's determining that we're rolling back with the core? Is that Joe's feelings? Is that the GM's feelings, or is that bestowing to the wishes of certain players?
No, we don't know.
And that's I guess that kind of is baked into the GM question.
Right. So I do believe the GM role is very important.
So
very important. I just don't agree with the notion that, hey, you could get by without, you could just keep the same infrastructure with the guys who are basically inexperienced, and you put Mike Dunleavy Jr. in a bad spot. You don't even hire him an assistant GM or whatnot. I think the GM role is in all the sports. Like people, you know what kind of bugs me about the 49ers whole thing? And 49ers Twitter, by the way, is a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weirdo land right now. John Lynch gets dismissed as like, Adam Peters. Why does John Lynch get dismissed as the GM of the 49ers, or the president of the 49ers?
I think actually John Lynch, similar to Bob Myers, his greatest strength is working the room, meaning empowering certain people in certain positions so that they can come to a group decision. But ultimately, I think he's got the credibility and the respect of the people that he works with to not make it about himself. But when we all know, like, at the end of the day, he's the one whose record is going to be affected based off Solomon Thomas is a bust, Nick Bosa's a home run, right? That goes on his record, not Adam Peters.
Right.
To me.
So
same thing with like James Wiseman. Everyone could say James Wiseman was this guy's pick. No, Bob Myers, that's on his record. Just like Jordan Poole in a positive light and Kevon Looney are on his record.
Right.
Ultimately, the buck stops with them.